Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Joining me today is take a dive into all of health and fitness. We're learning to overcome adversity to pick up first fiction and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Exciting news, totally unrelated to the podcast. Not sure if you guys care, but I'm sure you do. We did just get a brand new puppy, and she is absolutely adorable. So definitely recommend getting a dog. Great way to keep you active, get you to go for those walks we talk about all the time, get your steps in. As learning being a puppy owner now, it's hard to get puppies to walk on a leash, which then makes it hard to walk. So maybe when she's older, it'll be a lot easier. But ultimately, that's the goal is if you're having struggles getting some steps, getting out there, dogs are definitely the way to really make sure you have to do it. So without further ado, we're going to hop into today's episode. We have a young entrepreneur coming on today's show. His name is Logan. Before I bring him on here, I just want to bring up a point that I mentioned a lot of times in this show. And that is, we all talk about, I wish I started at this age. I wish I did this at this age. And he's doing it. So it is awesome. I told him backstage, I was like, I'm glad you're 19 years old and you're already this far ahead. It's amazing to hear, amazing to see, and hopefully he is an inspiration to others his age to kind of get the ball rolling early. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Logan. Logan, it's a pleasure to have you on today.
Hey, Anthony, good to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, and I already gave the huge spoiler alert that you're 19 years old, but I think it's important just because when you hit my age and older, everyone's like, wow, I wish I did that when I was younger. It would have been so much more ahead in my health and my fitness and my mindset training and my business. There's so many things that, I wish I did that at an earlier stage of my life because time is getting closer to the end.
Yeah. No, I hear you there. My favorite quote is a year from now, you'll wish you started a year ago. That's one of my favorite quotes.
So true. Absolutely so true. I want to talk a little bit about you. So tell us basically how you got to where you are today and ultimately how you got into mindset coaching.
Yeah. So overall, like my main story is I'm a national motocross racer. I've won upwards of 15 state championships here in Colorado. Motocross was basically my whole life. I started riding when I was like 2 years old, which actually, funny enough, I technically started riding before I was even born because my mom did a national race while pregnant with me. So I was on a bike before I was even born and then started actually racing at 8. And then aside from winning here in Colorado, I also have won some national championships and then placed very, very highly top 10, top 5 in the nation at some of the top races, such as like Loretta Lynn's, Minios, and some of the other top ones here. And then aside from that, I've just really always been an adrenaline junkie, skiing, snowboarding, wakeboarding, downhill mountain biking, all kinds of crazy things like that. And then I think that inevitably led me to entrepreneurship and really just taking the risk on yourself and going all in to try and build something worth building for the long term. And started my first business at 15, met my mentor online through Instagram. And then sure enough, him and I ended up partnering on a business and we started a digital marketing agency. And then I ended up traveling because he lived and still lives in South Africa. So I ended up traveling to South Africa at 17. I actually had never met him in person before. And I literally had only just talked to him and worked with him online for years. And then I ended up traveling to South Africa on my own at 17 to meet him for the first time and then also to work with him. And that was also during the peak of COVID as well. So that was definitely hectic and pretty tricky to convince everybody around me and the family to let me go there because obviously I was quite young. And then that was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. And now I go down to Cape Town, South Africa, and live there for like 3 months at a time throughout the year, working on my business, just enjoying it down there because it's one of the most amazing places I've ever been. But yeah, through all those experiences, the racing, building the business, and then also just really people talk about going to discover themselves, which I think a lot of people will look at that as like a cheesy line, except I actually know what that's like because that's what happened to me just inevitably when I went to South Africa. Is I really was able to kind of learn a lot about myself that I didn't know, and also just discover new things about myself and really hammer down on mindset and everything like that. And yeah, now that's led me to doing what I'm doing now.
So a lot of questions, which I think is important. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking the same age.
Yeah.
So I'm at the stage of my life where I'm married, thinking about having kids. So it's all relevant to that. But well, you're 15 and you're already getting involved in everything and starting your own thing. Why not do what every other 15-year-old is doing?
Yeah. So the funny thing is when I was it was like it was the craziest shift because it was literally just an overnight thing that all of a sudden I just shifted what I wanted to do. Not completely, because I kind of was just like, hey, let me try this. And what had happened, and it's funny because I literally remember exactly the day that I technically entered the whole entrepreneur world, because I originally at 15 and for the longest time, I wanted to be an engineer. I was always really, really good at school, like straight A's. I was really, really good student. And I was always into like math, engineering, all of that. I wanted to be an engineer and go work on cool shit like rockets or drones or whatever, and maybe work at like Lockheed Martin or SpaceX or Apple or something like that. And then all of a sudden I had always kind of been searching for like, how can I make some money online? Not to like try and get rich, but like, just how can I make some money online, you know? And nothing really jumped at me. I just didn't really like, it was like build websites or start a blog or do these things. And I was like, eh. And I was obviously only 15. So I was a little slightly lazy, I guess. But then one day I was literally sitting on my phone on my bed, just watching probably YouTube of video games or something like that at the time. And an ad came up on YouTube of Alex Becker. And basically he was talking about drop shipping. And the idea just kind of hit me. And I was like, that actually makes sense. Like I can understand how that would work. So I started looking into it more. And then that's what just led me down the rabbit hole of getting into entrepreneurship and everything. So that's what originally started it. Is I kind of was just like, I want to try this out. And then ended up just attending kind of like his webinar. That's how I found my mentor, Courtney, on Instagram, who ended up being my business partner. And everything just kind of just kept going. And I just really enjoyed the process and learning about it. And the more and more that I learned about entrepreneurship, being your own boss, and all the opportunities that are out there, I started being like, wow, this is actually something that I could do and I really want to do. Because originally I genuinely didn't even know A, what entrepreneurship was. And B, I always thought that either you work at a job or you are Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or something like that. Like, to be honest, I didn't even realize there was such a massive like gap, or not gap, but a massive spectrum of different things that you could do, until I started learning more about it.
Interesting. So drop shipping kind of got you into, hey, there's a digital marketing side of it, and that's where you met your business partner. And was your business partner, kind of dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Why digital marketing agency, and then why work with somebody from the other side of the world?
Yeah, so one thing I will say is that, like, obviously I attract younger viewers, and there are a lot of people who come to me younger asking like what they should do, if they should drop ship, if they should do this. I genuinely recommend I'm not saying they should do this. I just recommend from my experience that I think an agency is such a great thing to start with. And this is exactly what Courtney, my mentor, told me at the time as well, is that so many businesses out there take a lot of capital to get started, and there's a lot of risk that can go into it. But with an agency, there's basically zero risk because it takes almost zero money in order to start it. Plus, at the same time, you're going to learn practically every single part of building any type of business by running an agency, because you're going to learn how to market, you're going to learn how to sell, you're going to learn how to build a team, how to manage a team, operations, systems, how to deal with clients, how to deal with happy clients, how to deal with angry clients, how to basically, you're learning the entire spectrum of building a business through running an agency, which you can use those skills in basically all types of different businesses almost. So I think it's a great starting point, but it's also got really a really high ceiling. So you could run an agency for forever, to be honest. So no, that's kind of how we got into the agency, is because I had done the drop shipping for a while. And in full transparency, it really did not work for me. It did not work out. I did it for like a year, and I spent probably like $10,000 to $15,000 that just went kind of down the drain on A, learning, but also B, trying new things and just launching new stores, products, marketing it, blah, 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 which at the time I really had no idea what I was doing. But eventually he was talking to me and he was like, dude, why don't you come and join me in starting this agency called Centrosite, and we'll work together. Just work with me for a minimum of 6 months. And then from there, you can go do your own thing. And then that's kind of where it ended up taking off. And after a few months, I was like, bro, we could really build this up. Like, let's go all in on this and do that. So that's what led us to the digital marketing side.
Interesting. And then you go to, I don't know how in the world you convince your parents to let you go to South Africa at 17 years old, especially you're saying that was 2021?
It was, let me think. It was end of 2021. So it was October of 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
So during school, you went to South Africa for how long?
The first time I went, I think I originally planned on only going for, I think, a month. And then once I was there for a few weeks, I was like, guys, I love it here. I want to stay longer. So I extended it and stayed, I think, for like a total of like 2 months.
By yourself?
Well, that's the funny part, is when I first went there, which I paid for the whole trip. Like my parents didn't, that was something that was always important to me, is that I did not want them to pay for any of my stuff. Like, I wanted to do it my way. And if I was going to do it, I had to do it for myself. So I paid for the whole trip, handled all of that, booked my Airbnbs, doing all of that. But when I first went down there, which this was also the part that was hard to convince them on, was I had never met Courtney in person before, just online, which I've been working with him for a few years. So if he was like some guy looking to kidnap me, I was going to just say, man, you are persistent. Like, wow, because for years you've been working with me on something very difficult, which is a business. So I was pretty confident that he was not going to be kidnapping me. But when I first went down there, I actually was going to be staying with him at his house. And then after, I was planning on staying there the whole time, but then after about like 2 weeks, him and I decided it would make more sense if I booked an Airbnb for myself to go stay at closer to the office that we were working at, which that office was over in Rosebank, which is a really nice area down there. But no, I booked an Airbnb and I ended up staying at a few Airbnbs throughout the rest of my trip on my own.
So you did go with your parents originally, right?
No, I didn't go with my parents. I literally flew down. I got my passport like a week before I left, and then I flew down there by myself and did all that. And Courtney picked me up from the airport.
Mind blowing. I think that in of itself could just be an entire episode. But it's a risk. Like, how did you feel going over there? Like, that's change of life. And I'm gonna add something to that, because I think this is the second most important part of what you're talking about, which is at your age, 17, 18, 19, it's usually when kids go off to college anyway.
Yeah.
So at that point, you mentioned you discovered yourself at that point, because from every moment of your life before that, your parents were there. You were kind of felt like they were making the decisions for you. Even though you had an independence, it was still under their house. And then when kids go off to college, or if you went to South Africa, this is the opportunity to say, oh, if I want something done, I have to do it myself. Like, this is now me. And it adds that extra component that I guess just helps with maturity and growing up, for being on your own, and everyone's experienced that everyone away to college. So at what point did you kind of wake up and realize I'm here by myself
Yeah.
doing this crazy thing?
Yeah, I will say that the convincing of the parents was genuinely quite the process, and it was not easy to convince them. Like they were very my mom was like totally against it for a while, which by the way, I will throw in my parents are amazing. Like I genuinely think that I have the most amazing parents in the world. But it was very hard to convince them. And my dad was like up and down. Like one day he'd be like, yeah, you're going down there. It's gonna be so cool. And then the next day he'd be like, no, not in a million years, which would drive me crazy. But to be honest, I hadn't even really thought and fathomed the idea of what I was actually planning to do going down there by myself because I was so focused on convincing them just to let me go. And then as soon as they actually finally were like, all right, you can go, and I booked my ticket, it was at that moment that I was like, oh shit, I'm actually about to do this. Like that's when it hit me. And I was like, okay, now I'm actually pretty nervous. But luckily, there was only like a week until I was leaving. So I kind of was just blocking out those thoughts and emotions. And I was like, no, this is going to be this is going to be an amazing experience. Like, yes, I'm going to be scared. Like, there's going to be those emotions, but I just need to push through that because I know this is the right thing to do. This is going to be amazing. So then I got down there and landed, met Courtney for the first time, which Courtney, if you're listening, the first thing that I thought of was, wow, you're a lot shorter than I thought you were going to be. But then he took me to a really cool restaurant, which was called the Fire Room. And basically we got a steak and they like literally lit it on fire and everything, which was really cool. So we went because I landed and it was night there. We went and ate there, got a really good meal, talked and everything, and then went back to his place and basically just went to bed. But what I think helped me in a way to kind of, instead of having all those crazy emotions of like, oh my gosh, I'm like here in South Africa, I'm so far away, blah, 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 is I kid you not, I landed there at like 6:00 at night. And him and I went and ate. We went back to his place and he was like, all right, good night, dude. I'll see you in the morning. And literally we got up the next morning at 5 a.m. and got ready and went straight to the office and just started working the very next day. So like there was no easing into it. Like I literally landed and then we just jumped into working and going to the office and stuff. So I kind of just like stayed so busy that I never really thought of like how far away or how crazy it was because I kind of just jumped right into routine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great experience. And I'm gonna bounce ahead, even though I could literally talk about this for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I just don't know if everyone can listen to it for 3 hours. I think it's so interesting and good for you just doing it, and taking
Yeah, thanks.
the risk and going. But let's jump forward into kind of what you're doing now. So now you said you're focusing on mindset training and you're helping other individuals kind of get the head. So what does that look like? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so obviously through the motocross racing and then through traveling to South Africa and the business and everything, I've learned a lot when it comes to mindset because I've had to push through a lot of adversity, limiting beliefs, and just that little Jiminy Cricket in your head that wants to keep you from doing the things that you know you need to, the things you're scared of, the things you're afraid of, and then constantly telling you can't do it or whatever it is. And I've like my whole year last year was basically about really hammering into my mindset and taking control of my mind and building what I call an iron mindset. So through that, now I'm at the point where I can basically control my reactions to things. And regardless of my emotion, I'm still able to do what I know I need to do, getting up at 4 a.m. and going to the gym every day and doing all of these things. So mindset is genuinely the number one thing that has helped me in my life with racing and like literally mindset, which I can go down tangent with that. But a shift in my mindset literally was like a light switch with my racing. And it all happened at Loretta Lynn's like 2 years ago, which we could definitely talk about that. But regardless, what it looks like now with my program that I'm doing is I'm pushing everything on my Instagram. And basically, I'm just posting on there every single day. And then if people want to join the program, they can just message me. But it's basically, they can either work with me one-on-one if they have like very specific things that they want help with, or they can join the group. And either way, I basically give them their fitness routines, their macronutrients that they can stick to. They'll be in the app where they'll track all their stuff, which is really easy. And they'll have direct access to me for messaging and all that. And then we'll also have a weekly group call where basically we hop on, they can ask me any questions. We can talk about mindset, fitness, whatever it is that they need help with. And then basically just continuously helping them get better and improve over time. And then the one-on-one, they have access to the group calls, but also one-on-one calls with me. But my buddy, who was like the very first person that I worked with and got on the program, he lost 10 pounds within like the first 30 days, which was pretty crazy. And then he's also, I've helped him a lot with his mindset. And he's told me numerous times that he genuinely thinks that I saved his life because he was going into a pretty dark state and a pretty deep state of depression potentially, which luckily I was able to kind of work with him and help him get out of that.
That's awesome. So what kind of things, if we picked him specifically, right? Because a lot of that is mindset training. It's trying to get over something like depression and negative thoughts and stuff. So what were some groundwork that you laid with him to help get over that?
So I do genuinely think that your physicality is like the foundation of everything, including your mindset, because when you are in shape, you feel way better and you just feel better about yourself. Like when you look in the mirror and you look good and you're ripped, like you're like, wow, that's awesome. So that immediately builds that confidence in you. Like, okay, I can do anything, you know? So I genuinely think that that's really important, especially going to the gym and really just facing that adversity that you're getting and that stress, because you are stressing yourself mentally and physically when you're at the gym and you're pushing through that. So overall, that's a massive win. And that obviously helps with clarity. Like that's one of the main reasons I go to the gym is every morning I go to the gym literally because it gives me that clarity in my mind and it helps me just set up my day for just to be able to win the day. Like on the days that I don't go to the gym, I genuinely feel way worse and I do not get as much done as I do on the days that I start with gym. So that was one thing because he was extremely skinny when him and I first kind of started kind of talking more and everything. Is he was really, really skinny. And at the time when he was going through kind of the main stages of he wasn't feeling too good and everything, he was actually in his first semester at Colorado School of Mines, which is like a really prestigious school. Like that is not an easy school to get into. And he was in his first semester there. He was in a ridiculous amount of classes, I remember. Very, very smart. Like he is extremely, extremely smart. And he was just working and working and working on that. And one thing with him specifically is that he had actually already been in the space of entrepreneurship, hence why him and I were pretty good friends, because in high school, he actually was working on a lot of different things from stock trading, crypto, like really good at it, like not just somebody who's just fiddling with it, but literally like he had been doing it for like 6 years and he was really, really good at that. I know that he did pretty well with that. And then he also ran like a construction company on the side that he was doing really well with. So overall, like he had drive, he was not a lazy person, and he had that experience kind of being an entrepreneur, being his own boss. And to be honest, even in high school, I was questioning him because that's when I was also working on my businesses as well. I would constantly ask him, I'm like, I know you're doing well with these businesses, like you're making a decent bit of money. Why are you still planning on going to college? Like, why are you still planning on going to mines? And I think he wanted to do something in like computer science. I genuinely was like, I'm so curious why you want to still do that because you're doing so well with these businesses and everything. And I think after working with him, a massive part of it, which I think this is also something that really impacts a lot of younger people like myself, is their parents and their families' values and what they are so used to, which is going to college, getting a job, doing that usual process. And they kind of just fall into that and they're afraid to go against the grain and go against what their parents and their family and society kind of accepts as normal and accepts as what they should do, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that, but for him specifically, I just knew that he was already doing really well, and it just didn't really make sense to me why he would go from doing that to going to college and getting a normal job, because he was already used to running his own thing and doing well with it. So I didn't understand why he didn't just pursue that. So he ended up going to college. Him and I actually ended up kind of splitting and didn't really talk for quite a while. And I can't even remember how we reconnected, but I was in Cape Town, South Africa at the time, and we started talking again. And basically, him and I really started talking. He was curious how I was doing. At the time, the agency was doing pretty well. So I was enjoying Cape Town and everything. And he was at college, really struggling and just kind of mentally and everything, trying to figure out what he really wanted. And that's when him and I really just started working together. And I started talking to him and trying to help him figure out, like, dude, what is it you really want? Like 4 years from now, because he was just starting college. I was like, 4 years from now, when I think he told me he was going to be like $200,000 in debt with student loans after the 4 years, which is just crazy. So I was like, 4 years from now, after spending 200 grand on this, if you end up like best case scenario, you end up going through college, killing it, and getting the exact job you want, like, how do you feel about that? Like, do you really think that that's what you want here? Like, what is it you really want? And I really just nailed into figuring that out with him. And a lot of people, and even me, this is something I went through in Cape Town last year, hence part of the whole like figuring out my mindset last year, was most people know what they want, or they have an idea of what they want, or at least they think they know what they want. And I'm talking about like specifically for guys, most of us, we want the nice fancy cars or the supercars, the fast cars. We want the luxury lifestyle. We want the good looking women, like all of those types of things. But I think the issue comes in where people don't know why. They don't know the why behind the what. And that's what I really nailed into myself last year. And I think when you really start to map out the why, you'll realize that the what's are not nearly as important. And that's not even really what you want. So that's what I really nailed into with him, is like the why and what his why is, like why he wants to do these things. Like, why do you want to go to college? Why do you want to get that job? Or why would you want to drop out potentially? Which, interestingly enough, he ended up dropping out, and now he's working fully on his business. And he's actually, that's part of the reason why he tells me that he thinks I genuinely saved his life, is because now every day he's working on this business. He's excited about it, and he's moving the needle forward. And he genuinely thinks that it's the best decision he made, which was dropping out. So that's just interesting there. But it really, I think, comes down to answer your question, is really figuring out your why, like what it is that you really want, like what you want, not what your family wants, what your parents want, not what they want for you, but what it is that you actually want out of your life and why it is that you want that. And then once you've got that strong enough reason, then you've got that destination that I won't call it an end point, because I genuinely don't think there is ever an end point in life. It's a constant journey, but you'll at least have that like end vision that you're constantly building towards and striving towards, which that then allows you to figure out your map, like figure out how you're going to get there. And then from there, then you can really just figure everything out. But I think the foundation is your why and what it is you really want.
That was a full
Yeah.
story, but I think you hit a lot of good points on there. And I would like to specifically pick a couple of things you mentioned, because you said them, and I feel like for a lot of listeners, it's just going to go in and out. So I would like to dive just a couple of little points you picked up, and then hop a little more into the mindset part. But first, I just want to talk about Redefine Fitness's new nutrition program. Guys, if you have not heard about those, now is the time. You hear me on the show talk all the time. It is not about telling you to eat 4 ounces of chicken and 3 pieces of French fries and this and that. That gets boring. It's not sustainable. It's not a habit you can generate for the rest of your life. And that is why diets do not work, and why we call them yo-yo diets. You go down and you come right back up as your body adjusts. Instead, how about we teach you how to eat for the rest of your life, the foods you enjoy, eat more food. Yeah, you heard me right. More food. Still lose weight, still feel better, and just feel overall confident. A lot of things we talked about on this show. We have 2 programs. They are all online now. Yay, we finally branched into the online world. The first one is our basic. So if you just want once a month check-ins, we'll set everything up on our app for you. You'll be able to see your macros. You'll be able to have a coach. It's just a once a month check-in, and we're really helping you move on for that month. If you want something more advanced and you want to say, hey, I need hands-on coaching, our advanced program gives you weekly check-ins with your coach. We're still going to track everything for you. We're going to get you going in the right direction. And then the best part of all, 24/7 access to your coach. That is right. You heard me right. You're going to get the number. You're going to know, hey, I'm at a restaurant. What do I eat today? Take a picture of the menu, send it to your coach. They'll be like, well, I know you like these foods and this works, so try this meal. So you can order there while you're at the restaurant and not feel super overwhelmed because you're now in a social situation. You want to have a beer? Go have a beer. It's going to fit into your lifestyle. So anyway, check those out, guys. We do have our basic, our advanced programs. We will give you a free evaluation to set those up. So reach out today. You can call us at 631-364-9027 or send us an email at staff, STAFF, at redefine, REDEFINE -fitness.com. That is staff at redefine-fitness.com. Mention this podcast and you'll receive 10% off of all of those services. Anyway, Logan, let's hop back into what we were talking about. And real quickly, I know this is a health and fitness podcast, but this is a point I've mentioned a couple times in the show is the college dilemma.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about something, and you're going to be like, yeah, you're right. When you mentioned your family, you mentioned your aunts and uncles, the question is, what college are you going to? Right? It's not, what are you going to do after high school? What's your plan? Are you going to go into here? Are you going to go into there? It's what college are you going to? Then
exactly.
you meet with your guidance counselor. It's what college are you going to? They take out the other options. There's no longer, hey, there's other things you can do. Like a great example, just outside of what you talked about. You don't want to own a business? Fine. But did you know if you went to trade school, became a plumber, an electrician, not only will you have a quarter of the debt that everyone else has, but now you're going to have that trade experience and make double what they're going to make and quicker. Yeah, double. You graduate with a computer science degree in 4 years. It's going to cost you $200,000, kind of like what you mentioned.
Yeah.
And you'll be making, I mean, in Long Island, you make more than anyone. But let's say you make 60, 70 starting. And then you go and then you take a plumber, does 2 years, hops into a union, works in the city. Now he's making 120 a year. And if he wants, he can then go open his own plumbing company after a couple of years. And then the sky's the limit. I know these guys are charging like $250 an hour. So there's definitely room to grow. So that's one option. And then I want to talk about the option you mentioned. And that is moving into your own space, finding your own business, and not wasting that money into something that you're just not overall comfortable with because everyone's basically telling you to go. And it's something I went through personally. And we're talking 12 years ago. Oh, God, how old am I? I don't even, 2012, I graduated college. So it was always, what college are you going to? What major are you going to study? No one ever gave me the option outside of that. It was never, I felt so much pressure to go that I went, and then I was confused. And I thought college had the answer. And I bounced around a bunch of different majors, and I was never happy because I never found what I wanted to do because it never was working for somebody. I could never do it. I just couldn't take it. I ended up having to find my own way. But then I blew hundreds of thousands of dollars and now unnecessarily in debt that I could literally, if I took my student loan, it is enough right now to open a new gym.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was the same way for me. Like everybody, and that's also what every single person that you'll talk to, like at my age at least, that's what every single person that I'll talk to, or if like I'm going to a family thing and I haven't seen somebody for a while and they don't know what I'm doing, or if I'm being introduced to somebody, the first thing they ask is, what college are you going to? How's school going? And I'll be like, I'm not going. And they'll be like, what? you didn't go to college? And I'm like, no. And then I'll explain what I'm doing. And then they'll tell me, oh, good on you. That's great. Blah, blah, blah. But that's because I've already done it, which if I mentioned that, like, this is my plan and this is what I want to do, like, for example, a few years ago when I was maybe going to be going to college, if I mentioned that, then people would be like, I don't know about that. That's pretty risky. Like, you should probably go to college to at least get the degree and everything. And it's crazy to me. And even in high school, one thing that really just made me question some things was just like the conspiracy theory side of me is they literally would have me go senior year. They'd have me do actual classes and things that was non-negotiable. There was literally this class that was non-negotiable that I had to do, which I ended up cheating through it. I just photoshopped everything. But it was a class where I had to practice for the SAT, which I didn't even take my SAT, ACT, whatever it is. I didn't take any of that stuff because I wanted to WIN. So I didn't take any of those things. And they literally had a non-negotiable class you had to do where you had to practice the SAT. And what is the SAT for? College. That's it. And they also had a non-negotiable thing where you had to apply to at least one college. And a lot of colleges you have to actually pay to apply to. So that was very odd to me. I was like, they are pushing this so hard. Like, they're making it to where it's basically like, this is what you're doing next. Like, that's it. Like, you are going to college. That is non-negotiable.
Well, I can tell you why.
Yeah, no, I've got a lot of
It's
conspiracy theories for why. I look at college, and like anybody who's in college, I'm not trying to downgrade or anything. I'm not trying to make them feel bad or anything or be rude, but I've always said that college is a manufacturing company for employees because that is basically what it is. And the curriculum really hasn't changed since the Industrial Revolution. And what did the world need during the Industrial Revolution? Workers. They needed workers. They needed employees. So what did they do? They set up this system, the education system, so that it would manufacture employees so that they knew that these people could follow instructions and would show up on time every day and get the work done that these companies and everything needed to get done. And it really hasn't changed since then. So that's just one of my things that I usually say, but no, there's so many like conspiracy theories and all kinds of reasons for why I think they push
non-conspiracy
it.
reason. The big reason schools push college is because that's how they get accredited. So,
That
for
too. That too.
example, if I'm a high school or a school district and I say 90% of our kids go to college,
Yeah.
that's considered a higher end school. Therefore, taxes in that area are going to be higher, and half of property taxes, it's half in this New York State, it's probably different in other states, but then
Yeah.
go to that school. So that school now makes more money. So now that the school has
Yeah.
more of a budget, the goal is to get more of a budget, to get more enrollment and push off. This is a good school because X amount of our kids go off to college, whereas a like a school that's only half or 40%, they're not going to get the
Yeah.
money, and they usually end up being struggling school districts. So that's their reason, but it's financial.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everything in life, kind of like you said, is a business. A college is a business. They make money by getting enrollment.
Yeah.
So they're
Exactly.
spending tens of thousands of dollars to get you to go to their school because it's an investment in marketing to get you. The school system, and as far as high school and under, are spending money because that's how they get grants from the state. That's how they get more on property taxes. So that's a business. So it's nothing wrong with running a business. It's not a downside to them, but then if they just can't say they're putting their students first because they're really putting their pockets first. So it's let's take it and call a ball, like it is what it is.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's an interesting ideology. We'll say that.
yeah, exactly. I think it's about just understanding like who is the one running it and who is the one benefiting from it, and then questioning how they're benefiting and what their true intentions are, just to understand, like, okay, this is actually the true intentions of the college and everything. Which that doesn't necessarily mean college is a bad thing or a bad option. It just means just be aware of that's why it's being pushed so heavily, and then decide for yourself if it's the right option for you.
Yeah, for example, you want to be a doctor, a nurse. My wife's a nurse. She
Yeah.
had to go to college. And
Yeah,
she was
I wouldn't
very
want a
happy she was a
YouTuber.
nurse.
I wouldn't want a YouTuber operating on me like, oh yeah, no, I went to
No.
YouTube University. No, you'll be fine. No, I wouldn't want that. I'd be like, I hope you went to Harvard or something.
Yeah, exactly. So it has its place in everything is kind of the point.
Yeah,
And I want to talk about something. That's one section. The other
yeah,
section is you mentioned it was a while ago, but I'm going to double back a little bit.
yeah,
How, as a guy, you want to have a fancy car. I want to meet attractive women. Like that's your. And then you said to figure out the why you want that. That was a very interesting like question because it's so true. It's
yeah,
okay, you want a fancy car, you get the fancy car, then what?
exactly.
You get the nice house, and then what?
Yeah,
And we've mentioned about 3,000 times in the show. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you haven't heard it, so we'll teach you. You get the biggest dopamine release in your head in the achievement of a goal, not hitting the goal. So it's
yeah,
when you are close to achieving something, when you are close to buying that new car, and right before you're about to buy it, that's when you get that huge dopamine rush. And
yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
cloud nine, you're ecstatic. And then you get it, and it kind of just distils and never comes back. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's kind of why we want some stuff that way. On the second side of it, why do we want to make a lot of money? Because it's our job as men to provide. So that's
Yeah,
how we get that drive to really, hey, I need to do this. The underlying reason if I need to get all this stuff because this is how I'm going to be able to start a family because it's my job to provide, and that's something we
yeah.
dove into a couple episodes ago. So I'm not going to really harp on that, but it's definitely worth listening. If you're a guy listening to that episode, it's life changing, and it's a conversation we need to have nowadays. And I'm probably going
Yeah.
to be canceled for it, but go listen to it. Highly recommend. And then I want to just kind of relate back into one more thing because we really didn't touch on it at all in the last 40 minutes. So let's hit on it now. And we're going backwards in your life. We kind of
Yeah.
went forward. Now we're going way back. Motocross, you said you got into, you've competed, you have had a lot of experience doing that. And I know that was like your passion to push forward, but I'm
Yeah.
sure you will agree with me that experience of wanting to win and being in a competitive drive to push you forward has ultimately been the driver in where you are now to want to win in life. Hey, I did this accomplishment in motocross. I'm doing very well with it. I worked my
Yeah.
butt off and I had to work my butt off. I'm sure you did hours and hours and hours on one. And now
Yeah.
you can apply that same concept into a business and apply that same concept into life, which is ultimately the driver that's pushing you because you know how to do it because you did it already, which is why I'm a fan of competition, why we need
Oh yeah.
competition, because it
Yeah.
teaches us that if I screw up, which Logan, have you screwed up before?
Oh God, yeah. More
Exactly.
times than not.
Exactly. You screw up a million times. But the
Yeah.
point is, you screwed up, and what did you do?
You get back up. You
You
learn
get
from
back
it.
up and you learn from it. So it needs to be an experience that you experience on your own. No one can
Yeah.
come over and help you get up. You have to get up yourself. And that's going to drive you to fix that, to correct that mistake and move forward and be better. So kind of talk about that motocross and how it relates to that.
Yeah, no, motocross I've learned so much from motocross that has helped me 100% and will help me for the rest of my life. And one thing in particular with motocross that I think makes it so powerful, and why I learned so much is because it is individual. It's an individual sport. Whether I won or lost was on me 100%. If I came across that finish line and I didn't win and I lost, first of all, there was no worse feeling And second, it was on me. It was because I didn't train hard enough prior to the race. I didn't show up to the race mentally, physically, whatever it was. I didn't perform on the track. Like, there was no one else I could blame other than myself. Whereas I do think that team sports, there is that disadvantage when it comes to learning from that type of experience, because you do have a team. You do have other people that you can put the blame on. It's like, oh, well, John was drinking last night, or he slept in, or he didn't get the right sleep last night, or he didn't show up today. That's why we lost. Like, you simply can put the blame on others a lot easier, which I do recommend anybody who is in a team sport. Whenever you lose, just blame it on yourself. Like, somehow just take the fault and be like, why we lost because of me. What can I learn from this? I think that is so powerful. But I was forced to do that with racing because there was no one else to blame. So I think that was really, really huge. And then aside from that, I lost a lot more times than I won. It's just the wins outweighed the losses, hence the championships and everything like that. But going through that many losses really teaches you how to face adversity, because there was so many times, like, if my parents talked about it, they'd embarrass me like crazy, because they talk about all those times that I lost my shit and I was the most emotional person ever after a race, and it would like be embarrassing. I'd be throwing my stuff everywhere when I was younger. And then eventually I learned how to deal with those losses, and instead of like just going crazy and letting my emotions take control and letting my emotions take over and reacting, instead of being so reactive, I could instead kind of be a lot calmer and just realize, okay, I lost that race. The past is the past. Why did I lose? I didn't feel very good physically out there. I lost my energy towards the end of the race, and the heat really got to me. Like, if I'm racing like Tennessee or Florida or Oklahoma or something like that, or somewhere like that, the heat got to me towards the end of the race. My endurance wasn't there. I need to train harder on my endurance, so that this doesn't happen again. Also, which this is probably the thing I dealt with the most over the years, was I had a mental block out there. Like, I lost focus and I fell because I lost focus for a split second, or I lost focus and stopped pushing and the other guys got around me, or whatever it was. And basically looking at it that way, and then being able to figure out, okay, I lost that race. Here's why. And here's what I can at least work on to try and avoid that from happening the next time. And that type of thinking, where it's like, it's my fault that I lost. It's 100% on me. Here's why I think that I lost, and here's what I can work on to avoid that happening again. You can freaking transfer that type of thinking into every single thing in life. So, which that just came over time, because I mean, believe me, I did not think that way for a long time. I mean, I would lose a race and it would be like a temper tantrum. It was ridiculous. But then over time, obviously learning from that and realizing you need to grow up and take the losses like a man, as well as take the wins like a man. And then obviously the wins just feel amazing. And it also just gives you that feeling of accomplishment. And then it's like, there is no better feeling. Like, I personally, I thrive, which I could go into a 5-hour conversation on my thoughts on like happiness and everything like that. I don't thrive off of that. I thrive off of fulfillment and achievement, and actually doing hard shit and then winning out of it, or achieving something from it. Like, that is what I get my fulfillment from. Like, I will do hard shit a lot, such as going to the gym or working on my business, taking the losses, because I know that feeling of winning, there's nothing that comes closer to it. So, which I learned that from racing. But yeah, no, those are some of like the main things that I definitely learned from it.
Yeah, I love that, man. You really, it's inspirational. I think it's just a single word. And I want to ask you, because we're out of time, the final two questions I ask everybody, but I'm actually going to change one of them because I think it's important. So
Yeah.
instead of asking you to summarize this episode in one or two sentences, I'm going to ask you to give us one or two sentences for any young listeners out there hearing from your life. What would be a message you'd give to somebody who's anywhere from 16 to 20? Just give us one or two sentences specifically for them to help them better with their lives.
One or two sentences. Um, okay. I think that there's two main points that I would want to end with, which is A, nobody's coming to save you, especially if you're a man. Nobody's coming to save you. It's all on you. Like, you have to go out there, but get excited about that. Don't let that scare you, because that means you have control. Like, your life is in your hands. So you should be excited about the fact that it is all on you and you can create any life that you want. It's in your hands. That's one thing. And the second thing is, everything is your fault. It doesn't matter what happens. You should look at it as if it's your fault and you're the reason why that happened. And then from there, that is the only way that you can learn from experiences, is because you can look at it and be like, this happened. It's my fault. How can I avoid this happening again in the future? What can I do? And then you can continuously move forward and grow. So those, I think, are the two main things that everybody should take away: is it's all on you. Nobody's coming to save you, and everything is your fault. And you can learn from any experience if you look at it that way.
And I want to add, for some clarity, the second one you mentioned, everything is, it's something I apply in my personal life, and I've been doing for years. So it's definitely huge, and that's two people different in ages applying that same kind of principle. But the second one, which is, how can people find you, get a hold of you, give us all that stuff?
Yeah, so my home base is Instagram, which my Instagram is Logan_Lesser. And that's where I'm posting daily, just mindset, motivation, also my lifestyle with riding, jet skiing, snowboarding, whatever it is that I'm doing. So I think there's a lot of value to gain there. And then I'm also posting on my story daily, kind of like my routine of waking up early at like 4, going to the gym, mindset things, kind of how I'm going through the day, making sure that I'm getting over those negative thoughts and just continuing to push and grow. So my Instagram is definitely the number one place. And then people can obviously reach out to me there as well, whether they just need help with anything, have a question, or if they want to join my program. So yeah, my Instagram.
Love it, Logan. Thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, subscribe to our show, and remember, fitness is medicine. Until next time. For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you can do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the redefined difference.